Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Natalie Stone, and I serve as the Assistant Director in the Office of Student Involvement. We are celebrating 90 years of Fraternity and Sorority Life being on DePaul's campus. In celebration of this big milestone, we are interviewing faculty, staff, students, alumni, and advisors about their experience in their chapter and Fraternity and Sorority Life at DePaul. So I'm really excited to have Rico Tyler with us today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rico. Can you introduce yourself, tell us the university you attended, chapter membership, and then role at the university?
Sure. Well, I'll try to get all those together. I'm going to kind of bunch them together. So my name is Rico Tyler. I am the Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, one of the Associate Vice Presidents here at the university. I've been here for approximately 16 years. I attended West Virginia University, and I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to join Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and how it shaped your undergraduate experience.
Sure. Now that I've been in higher education for a few years, I can look back and have a pretty good understanding of where I was as far as identity development, value discernment. So I was challenged early on when I began my studies of folks asking me, what do you stand for? What's of value to you? Much like we do here with the Chicago Quarter, we do that value discernment. So it was a real opportunity for me to be thinking about what was important to me. This aspect of the greater community beyond myself was very important, and how I might live that every day. It was also important for me to carry myself in a certain way, to be that servant leader, to be there for others. So those two things, that community piece and being a role model, were extremely important to me. And I didn't go into higher education or my college career having any knowledge about the FSL community, very limited. But what I did notice, almost every place I went, there were these individuals with these Greek letters on who were providing some type of public service, who were part of scholarship committees, who were the tops in their classroom. And I was seeing them so much, I had to ask about them and wanted to learn more about what they did and why they did it. Mm-hmm. So having an opportunity to go to an informational to learn more, and through my time of that value discernment that I went through, I found that there was a close connection. I too wanted to be an individual who was an agent of change. I too wanted to be someone who could bring benefit to the community, and Alpha Phi Alpha was that vehicle to be around like-minded individuals who were doers. So that really meant a lot to me.
And you spoke about how you saw the members being agents of change and going out in the community and doing service. And I know that's a huge part of Alpha. And so if you could talk a little bit about, a value or a commitment that is your favorite and why.
That I love for all mankind is part of the aims of the organization. And I think that spoke to me immediately. That we're thinking beyond ourselves, and that commitment to others, that upliftment of others, that utilization of one's own talents and gifts for the betterment of others is something that really endeared me to the organization, that we were looking to bring benefit to the entire community is something that spoke to me then, and it speaks to me now. And as I think about our institution, DePaul University, and how it's called to serve, is aligned with that. And it's aligned with many aims and goals of other members of the FSL community. So that service to others, that love of all mankind, speaks to me as much now as it did then.
I know you talked about uplifting others. So is there like a service project or like a particular memory that you can think back on that you continue to look back on?
I do. I think it was one of my first where we were volunteering in a local elementary school. And to be in that elementary school with children of color, particularly Black children, who didn't have a ton of interaction with college students. And for those students to hear our stories and know that we came from where they were sitting, that we too were of color, that we too were first generation, that many of us had some financial challenges, but we were here. I remember how they would stare at us. And I remember those questions of how we got here and what was it like to go to school and what we wanted to do once we finished, and how much impact it had on them. And to hear those stories later on and to go back and visit and bump into some of those children 10 and 15 years later, and them saying, I remember when you came to the school and you volunteered. That act alone inspired me to do this or that. So that always stayed with me, the impact that we were able to have just being present, just sharing our story, just caring about our community. And, I think now if we were able to reach one or two of those students, we did it so many different times, like that is the greatest impact ever. That you have inspired someone to go to college, that you inspired someone to become an engineer, an architect, a lawyer, a teacher, what have you. Because many times we talk about you can't be what you can't see. So, I think back to those times that we volunteered for all these different school functions for K through 12. It always makes me smile.
I even remember the DePaul Alpha Phi Alpha chapter bringing, students in grade school age and just sharing their story and their experience and what college can do for you. And I think it was cool to see how big their eyes got and being able to see themselves, being on a college campus and seeing how they support each other. I think that's a really special part about fraternity and sorority life.
Agreed. And I think the fact that you have this body of like-minded individuals who can mobilize, it's very difficult to do that alone. The logistics alone of bringing a group of students is very challenging. But when you have a group of like-minded individuals who are about change, who want to be agents of change, boy, that's pretty powerful. That you could begin delegating responsibilities, that you have like-mindedness, that value discernment has gone on, that there's strategy involved with change. All those things are a big deal. And you're right, to bring those young people on campus and begin normalizing this experience, like I'm here, you belong here, is a big deal. And that's one of my first memories of some of the alphas on DePaul's campus, that type of commitment. And this was early in my tenure here, to see those days when they would bring students on campus. And they weren't necessarily asking for a ton of help. They weren't asking folks to do it for them. They took the initiative. They took the initiative to reach out to schools. They took the initiative to work with admissions and some offices to put together a program for those students.
Yeah, I think another way that I've seen Alpha be agents of change on DePaul's campus and many campuses is through voter engagement. And I think that's such a significant part of the Alpha experience. I mean, that begins even before they join, is about being active and being registered to vote. And so, yeah, I think that's also, when you said being an agent of change, that memory popped right into my head.
Right, and being socially conscious in understanding our role. And I think if you look at the members, and it's always easy to start with MLK as a member, but that's the orientation of alphas, that community betterment, that community engagement, that social justice piece. And I would say that's true of many of the Divine Nine as well. But that is something that when you think about Thurgood Marshall and others, and our newest elected senators and what have you, and that we have this common background, that commitment to one another, it says a lot.
And I think, kind of just talking about other special parts about FSL, is that it continues on after graduation. Being an agent change doesn't stop when you graduate, or being committed to serving the community doesn't stop. So how have you continued to remain active, after you graduated?
Right. It's a lifetime commitment, and I think of what it's given me. It's given me the opportunity to develop my leadership skills within that organization when I was undergrad. It's created lifelong bonds. We are who we are early in life. And to go through that formation period with others as I develop, as we talk about value discernment, is a big deal. So I'm always connected to those individuals, right? You go through something very unique through your college years. And there's something that is bonding about the FSL community that you take with you for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. That commitment to others isn't just for your undergraduate career. It's a lifetime. So that charge and the way we attempt to deliver our lives then continues on. Those aims haven't changed. The goals haven't changed. The commitment to others haven't changed. You can still leverage this national organization for a movement, whether it be voter registration, as you talked about, whether it be bringing attention to equity issues in education. There are a variety of ways I've continued to stay engaged with the national organization through voter, through education, what have you. And it's also one thing I don't mention enough is that sense of community, a friendship that lasts a lifetime. I mean, I get around and we laugh. We think about times we've had together that we continue. I still engage with the families of my fraternity brothers on a regular basis. We come together. That is a lifelong bond that never ends. It is also a connection to individuals who are also Alpha, but maybe not at your chapter. There is a similar foundation, beliefs, values that you have a connection on, a shared experience that you have a connection on, a shared commitment. So it's also enabled me to leverage that for new friendships, new relationships. So it is something that lasts a lifetime. The community lasts a lifetime. The commitment to others lasts a lifetime. It becomes a vehicle for change, and it's just invaluable. And I don't think when I was young, I truly understood that, but so appreciative of it now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, I feel like I am more committed even after I graduated. Because I think in undergrad, I was just kind of almost going through the motions and there was just so much going on. But I think after you graduate, you can really see how your personal values connect or like what volunteer opportunities you choose to get involved in. And it's all, connected back to your organization.
You're exactly right. And I think the FSL community does a good job of that, of saying, the expectation is that engagement continues. The expectation is that you continue to live these missions the rest of your life because you are forever attached. So you're forever attached to that organization, both good and bad.
Yes. So you mentioned in the beginning that you've been with DePaul for about 16 years. So you have seen everything. How have you seen the FSL community evolve and change over your time?
It's been awesome to watch its growth. I was fortunate enough to be a part of some celebrations early on, some gatherings early on, where you could do some of that in an office or a small room. To see the growth, the sheer numbers, to see the growth. When I say growth, I'm also talking about the sophistication of not only recruitment, but also service, leadership. Really, FSL community has taken a giant step in helping to create a campus environment that you can't put into words. It has to happen organically, and they've lived out that mission. I remember sitting about 2 years ago, and it was one of our end of the year celebrations, and I think it was a service award, but they were talking about the different types of service these organizations had done, and I think I could have just burst with pride when we talk about the number of individuals out there, the number of hours given to others. It's pretty amazing when you think about the hundreds of students that we have and the thousands of hours that have been committed to the greater Chicago community. It's pretty impressive. So I think the sophistication of service, the continued impact they have on campus culture has been pretty amazing. And I've also really appreciated the leadership from these organizations. Many times the leadership of these student organizations have a powerful voice at the university level and have really served to inform some directions the institution is taking in general. So that's been fun to watch.
Yeah, and even in my 5 years at DePaul, I feel like it's changed so much. I mean, we've went from 3 councils to 4 councils, with NPHC having their own council now. We've added a few chapters, and it's been cool to see, as you said, the students' leadership in that. I think, yes, I mean, our staff, of course, wants our FSL community to grow, but we also, want the students to be on board. And I think they have been really leading the charge, over the past couple of years of saying, this is what we want our FSL community to look like, how can, the university continue to support us.
And, another thing is you're mentioning that's been great to see is the mosaic of the FSL community.
Mm-hmm.
That it represents the institution and the beauty and richness and strength of the institution. So all members of the campus community find themselves within the FSL community. And in being in some of those larger rooms, when we have them all together, you think to yourself, this is DePaul. This is the best of DePaul.
Yeah, because we have 28 chapters now, and of the 28, 14 are culturally based. And I think that says a lot about the university and how that connects to our mission. And I remember us being at a conference a few years ago, and we're one of the campuses that have the highest number of culturally based chapters in the Midwest. And I think that just says a lot that, as you said, students can really find their place. They don't have to be like, this is my only option. They have a lot of options. And I think that also helps, students finding their sense of belonging at DePaul.
Agreed. And, when we think about from a selfish perspective, there are things I know as a college administrator. I know members of the FSL community graduate at a higher rate because there are expectations placed on academic excellence. I know members of the FSL community do a ton of service. I know members of the FSL community eventually give back to the institution as well and come back to the institution. So from a very selfish administrative perspective, it's a win. It's a win for the university to support the FSL community. And the payoff has been, you name it.
Yeah. You have seen a lot of Fraternity for Life events at DePaul. So what are some of your favorites?
Oh my gosh. I've seen quite a few. I tell you what, one that I thought was a ton of fun was a stroll competition for some of our multicultural organizations that they held. And I thought it really was great to see the impact on culture, right? That we know that started many times with the Divine Nine, but has been incorporated or shared with other organizations who've taken some of that and made it their own. So that was super fun. It has been super fun to watch. I'll go back to this just because I've talked about it a little. I always enjoy going to Service Day, Convention Service Day, when it's time for the organizations and you're able to identify FSL communities by the shirts and that all the time gives me chills. So that is what I remember because it's a university commitment. But when you see the sheer number of FSL community members there, with their sleeves rolled up, ready to commit themselves to the greater good, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about, your experience in Fraternity and Sorority Life and, how FSL has evolved at DePaul. And so, if you had to give a first-year student or second-year student advice about joining the FSL community, what would you tell them?
I would say we've given you opportunities to learn a little bit more about yourself. So there's been some critical value discernment that you've done, whether it be in the Chicago Quarter class or some other places and spaces here on campus. What's important to you? Why is that important to you? And are there other like-minded individuals where that's equally important? Understand the power of community when it comes to creating change and being around like-minded individuals. So that would be something I would ask for folk to look for, that value congruence when they're looking, but also know that this is a wonderful opportunity for community as well. If you're looking to find your place, it was there for me. I am an introvert by nature. So me seeking out relationships and friends isn't something that is I look to do on a regular basis. But to be around individuals who had the same aims and goals as I did, who valued this academic experience, who wanted to be part of something bigger, made for a nice transition for me into a community of care, of a community that lasted a lifetime. So I would say that value discernment and making sure you connect with a community of care would be the two things that I would recommend.
That's great advice. So in closing, what was your favorite memory of being part of your organization as an undergrad?
I think I talked about it a little earlier, but I'll come back to it, was when we had an opportunity to volunteer at K through 12 at schools, right? So we would go into schools and be with these young people, particularly these young people of color. And I remember I talked about my story, talked about why I wanted to go into education. And I was able to step back and watch some other members of fraternity interact with the children and share their story. And I remember looking at one of the children thinking, that was me. That was me. And that what lasts a moment for us lasts a lifetime for others. So I remember in that moment looking at that student and seeing myself and understanding the power that we have as members of the FSL community, the power that we have of this like-mindedness, that these mission-driven institutions and organizations can truly make a difference. So it all hit me in that moment. It continues to hit me, and I think has inspired me to do the work that I do today.
Thank you for sharing and expanding on that experience. I think we talked a lot about community service, and I think for fraternities and sororities, I think they often do continuous service. It's not like we're going to go there for an hour and never come back.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of that at DePaul, and I think they have this true connection with these nonprofit organizations, and they whether that's working with kids or if there's specific. There's just so many different options for them, and they build this true connection. Agreed.
And I think it's nice to know we have organizations that think beyond themselves. We live in a society where it's about self. To be part of organizations where it can be about others. And that's not all that they do, but that's a powerful piece to know that there are others, particularly young people and undergrad, who are practicing a skill set, who are getting the opportunity to commit themselves to a community beyond their own, is a big deal and great practice. It becomes, a habit. Once you do that, once you care about someone other than yourself, once you start to see the benefits of your action, it's an addiction and you can't stop. So I'd be hard pressed to find members of the FSL community who can't point to a time or a place where they've made a difference or it's impacted them in some way.
Well, thank you again, Rico, for joining us this afternoon. We have 2 more 90 stories tomorrow, so make sure you also tune in tomorrow. So thank you again.
Natalie, thanks for having me, and I appreciate the conversation.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.